Karen, it's such a pleasure to finally get you on the podcast. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be with you.
Oh, it's great. I was just saying off air, we could chat for hours. So I'm looking forward to me trying to contain our conversation to 20, 30 minutes. But it's wonderful to have you here. So let's get straight into it because there is so much that we can talk about based on your expertise and your experience and the work that you do now, the audiences that you speak to, the books that you have written. But what I want to start with is an acknowledgement that you've led at those highest levels of corporate. You've worked in professional services for many years, and you now work at this forefront of leadership and menopause, which is really fascinating. But when you step back and look at the landscape that we are in right now, I'm curious, what do you feel is most urgent right now from your lens? What is that need right now that we need to be talking about?
It's a really interesting question because there is so much going on in the world as we speak, globally, locally, a lot of complexity and a lot of confrontation, a lot of uncertainty. And I think the thing that we need the most from leaders is really people who are stepping in and steadying the ship as best they can. There's still a lot of really good things that can be done, but it needs us to actually focus on how do we bring some calmness to what we're doing. And that can be challenging in a world of complexity, but it's digging deep and actually finding how can you bring hope and help people find the different pathways forward towards something which is positively minded in a world which at times doesn't feel that way. There's a lot that still needs to happen in the world that we're in. There's many organisations that are still wanting support and people to help them function and to be optimal and flourish. And I think as leaders, we need to try and help set the scene for them of what's possible. So possibility is a big piece of us opening our mind, broadening perspective and bringing perspective to help people see what they might not see when they're in a time of flux and a time of challenge.
And are you finding from your work that there's an increasing number of leaders and organizations that are seeking out this conversation, this perspective gathering? Is there an appetite right now? And if you're finding that, why are you feeling that appetite has grown now versus transactionally doing bits and pieces to do short-term fixes?
Well, I think the appetite's there because people want things to be better and people prefer to be in an environment where there's equilibrium and where there's some level of contentment and an ability of having less distractions to draw our attention away from where we need to focus. And I guess the challenge for leaders is if they're feeling the angst of what's happening and the uncertainty and they're distracted by local and global events, how do they first get themselves to a point where they can be in conversation and clear their mind so that they can draw their attention to what's most important at this point? How do they bring their teams with them and engage them and motivate them to feel a sense of safety and connection in stepping forward? And am I seeing this appetite for it? Absolutely. People want to be in positive conversations. It's just about making space for those conversations because, as we all know, it's an incredibly busy world as well. And it's only getting busier and we're being thrown so much information that it's almost overwhelming at times to be able to, kind of shake it through, sift it all out to realize, what should I catch that's of value? And so helping them find space and knowing that you're bringing value, I think is really important to help them add value to their business.
And you worked in professional services for a long period of time. I lose
Over 30 years, yeah.
and one of few women here in Australia that operated at that level for that significant period of time. That's right, isn't it? And so I can only imagine what you've seen over those 30 years, and equally the work that you're doing back in there. What have you noticed that shifted in this work that you do?
What I've noticed is the shape has shifted. So the design, if we talk about how things remain the same and how people in the old days would kind of rinse and repeat and be able to still sustain a business by doing the same things, but the needs to be much more agile and flexible has certainly expanded, and people's responsiveness to all of these changes has expanded. So the way that people look at complex problems is different. It's not a matter of doing what you did before. It's a matter of thinking, what can you do differently, and how can we do it differently, and how can we embrace things like AI and in everything we do, and how do we even give people comfort around those type of topics, and also the surety that it's not meaning that they won't have a job. It's about how do we lead differently, work differently. So the shape and design of organisations has certainly changed. I think the level of agency and autonomy in organisations has changed. People are more interested in diverse points of view, opening up space to hear different ways of solving problems. Whereas in the old days, it would have been, okay, this is how we do it. I'm the most senior person. Just listen to me and get it done. Whereas now I think leaders are much more open to being a bit more vulnerable about, well, what is it that I don't know? Or what is it that you know that maybe I haven't drawn to my attention? And how can we solve together? So there's much more collaboration I'm seeing, and an interest in redesigning things for the betterment.
So, is this what led you to write your book, Be Your Own Leadership Coach? Because it's an interesting angle, isn't it? You know, having worked in organizations myself, being engaged by organizations to coach individuals, I love the concept of this book, which I've read multiple times, around how you can actually start taking ownership of your own journey and coaching yourself through that. So I'm curious where the idea for the book came from for you, and what your intention was for writing this book.
Well, I was fortunate to have a second career where I retrained as an executive coach. So I did a Masters of Science in coaching psychology part-time. And I did it because I was given a coach, and I fell in love with the process of coaching. And I felt that this was quite a privileged role to have. So when I suggested to the CEO at the time that I leave the tax business to go and roll out a program I designed for women partners of the organisation and help them be their best selves, it was embraced. So I was able to have this second career in the organisation. What I found, though, was it was privileged for me in sitting in conversation in this beautiful space where I could help and support people to be their best or better selves. And I was also doing coaching outside of the organisation on a volunteer basis with Dress for Success, helping women back into the workplace, and the Bambuddha Group, who was a social enterprise looking at the construct of kindness for leaders. And it was joyous work. What occurred to me, though, is not everyone can have a coach, and that concerned me, because logistically you might not have access to a coach, or financially you might not have the pocket money to be able to pay for a coach. And so how are you going to advantage yourself to be able to lead as your best or better self if you're not aware of coaching strategies and practices? And that was very much what was driving my book, is how could the impact be such that anyone could actually every day fill their virtual backpack with coaching strategies and practices that they could carry with them each day and draw out what they needed in support for the challenges in front of them. And this was really the thesis behind the book. And it's been a lot of fun in bringing it to life, because when people actually are able to self-coach, they'll have much more nuanced conversations with their coaches when they go back. And I often talk about the spaces in between. So what happens in between, whether it's coaching sessions or even engaging with the coach full stop? How are you making sense of that space in between and helping yourself to respond to challenges, recognize blind spots, monitor your energy, do all the things that leaders need to do in order to have the impact they want to have, which is hopefully one which is long-lasting and positively minded towards others. So really that's where the book's come from, and how it's been accepted and received by people.
And I've seen that firsthand. We gifted a copy of your book to everyone in our community, Elevate and Inner Circle, and it was fascinating hearing the response, because we've got people there who are running teams, and they've approached it from that perspective of the next season in their business. And equally, there are individuals that are running practices. I'm curious from your perspective, because obviously you've got a very significant corporate background. You work a lot with many senior leaders on helping them navigate this world that we're in right now. For any listeners that are running their own businesses, or that have left corporate or been made redundant from corporate and starting out on their own, how will this book help them? Because it's a different entity, as you and I both know, it's a different entity when you're on your own. Yes. You've got a vision, a dream.
Yes. I mean, I've had some really interesting learning steps over the last few years, because I finished being a partner in a large professional services firm, a partner of 24 years, I stepped into my own business, and suddenly I was having to think of and work out my ways of working and how to face into the world. So I've certainly drawn on some of the practices. The practices will help people because in the first 7 chapters, it's helping them understand what does it mean to lead as you, as your best or better self. So trying to identify your purpose, your values, your strengths, and really first settle in as to what you want and what you represent, and then moving to understanding how to set goals and what motivates you, building up your energy, so managing your energy and your time. I think importantly, though, is building your own personal board of directors. And I know that you've also, in your book, referenced it with some slightly different terminology, but it's actually having the right people around you, coaches, mentors, advocates, sponsors, and so on, to support you as you go through this. And once you've got to a point of being able to coach yourself to be your best or better self and lead as you can turn from me to we. So again, referencing your work, is how do we actually help people be part of our team? How do I lead through the team? So how do I empower people? How do I assist them in terms of role modeling? How do I consciously communicate or listen to them? And how importantly, my favorite chapter is how do I lead with kindness? And these kind of things you can, with the book, you can actually use the whole book. It's got self-coaching exercises within it. There's some theory in it. There's stories that help people understand context. But you could, with your team, pick out a chapter and build the skills around that. So if my team's not particularly strong at listening, we could all have a look at that chapter, do the exercises ourselves, come back and have a chat about what worked well, and it'd be even better if what, and then try and socialize some of the different approaches we might take to be much more effective as a team. And I'm seeing teams do that in a really effective way. So it's great for self, but it's also great to use as a tool for teams.
It's such a great tool. Before we move on to the work that you're doing now, I just want to double down, particularly as we're recording this, and the ongoing changes. Changes are constant after all, but the ongoing stuff that's going on in the world, that last piece about leading with kindness. Whether you're a leader, whether you're an individual in an organization, whether you're a supplier selling into organizations, whether you're navigating stuff for yourself, that leading with kindness is almost easy to write, but I think people find it hard to follow through on. And we were on a mutual call this morning in our community, and you jumped in and you essentially gave permission to people to be kind to themselves. I'd love you to expand on that a little bit if you can while we're here, and people listening in wherever they are in the world, of what that concept of leading with kindness actually means.
You're referencing it beautifully because it does start with self. So for us to lead with kindness, it's actually recognizing how can I be in support of myself? How do I bring self-care and compassion to me in order to support myself to step forward, to do all the wonderful things that I'd like to do in life? How do I speak to myself? What are the voices that I'm hearing, and how do I make sure I'm attentive to those, but also replacing them with positive self-talk as I would speak with kindness to a friend? So it's first about supporting self, the compassion, the kindness, and it's also about empathy to others. So recognizing the needs of other people, because when we start to recognize people's needs, we can start to help them realize that we do see that they are important, that they're significant, that they're of value, that they're valued, and that they matter. And when people feel like they matter, oh my goodness, it's like, it's so strong. It's stronger to my mind than belonging. Because if I feel I matter and that I'm someone that you can call upon because of my skills, because of my talents, because of who I am and what I stand for, I will feel worthwhile. You can tell me I belong. You can tell me I can sit in this organization and I can sit on level 7 and this is my desk and here's my laptop. But unfortunately, we've got someone calling in.
That's
to learn
mine. Someone's calling me. Someone wants to, I don't even know where they're calling from. Oh God, I can't even turn it off.
That's all right. You got it?
There we go. There we go.
That's all right. So if people are feeling that that they understand more than, if in terms of leading, of mattering, it's stronger than belonging, where you're going to be told you sit in this particular level, this is the team you belong to, yet I might not feel like I matter at all. People might not engage with me. They might not understand who I am or my needs. And so if we can address that, if we can use empathy to stand in people's shoes, to see the world from their perspective, to open our minds without judgment. These are acts of kindness. And to ask questions, to be curious, to pause. Pausing is so important. I wrote a post actually about not having to have equivalence when we're actually looking at difference. And sometimes we start to say, well, in my experience, this is what I've had, therefore your experience must be this. And we're wanting to kind of have some symmetry because things can feel uncomfortable. Yet I think it's even kinder if we don't. If we just open our minds to someone else's experience, hearing it, learning from it, understanding it, and then perhaps co-creating what a response could be to support their needs. These are the types of things I'm talking about with leading with kindness, and they're all framed in terms of having positive work environments around you. So how do you create psychologically safe environments so that people can feel that they're heard, that they can contribute, that they're listened to, and so forth.
And we had I know you and I have been in a couple of conversations about this where in this world right now where it is chasing results and there's like this unconscious hustle and sales and and you've heard me talking lots about hang on, experiment, add value, get curious, put yourself in their shoes, and even in this chaotic world that we're in right now, finding the peace in yourself so you can serve better. It's a different way of leading because we don't have to have the answers. In fact, it's best if we don't, because who knows what the answers are. But for many, it's tricky because we have built our careers or grown up in organizations being expected to have the answers and to be in control. So this is where this book is so important right now, because it's not about fixing people. It is about coaching people through a different way to lead so that they can serve their team, their clients, whoever it is, in a different way. And that's why I absolutely love it. So let's segue into the work you're doing now, because I go, this is really interesting, because leading with kindness brings me on to, in my head, going, well, surely as women at different stages in their life, in organizations, we need to lead with kindness. And well, I'll let you explain, Karen, the work that you're doing now and why you're so passionate about it.
Well, it does stem from that too. We as women will all go through a stage of life where we transition through menopause. Every woman will experience that. And with that, we might experience some symptoms. 80% of women will experience symptoms which can affect how we think, how we feel, and how we function. And the symptoms can appear at times which can be hugely unexpected and inconvenient. So they don't kind of stop at the door to the office and say, I'll see you this afternoon. They can come along, during all moments, whether you're presenting, talking, being with your team, or whatever it might be. So we need to address this in the workplace. And it has been a topic which, for a whole range of reasons, hasn't been openly spoken about in the workplace, but it's something which I'm passionate about bringing to the attention of organisations and being mad about menopause. And it doesn't mean being angry about menopause, it means making a difference. And if organisations can recognise that this is not a personal issue that we need to leave outside of an organisation, it's actually an issue which affects our leadership leakage. It affects the presenteeism plight that comes when people are suffering from these symptoms and unable to be their best selves. And we have well-being woes where people might lose confidence, or they might feel physically or emotionally or cognitively unwell for temporary periods of time. So we need to address this in the workplace so we can have our unfair share of women talent and respond to, some of the gender gap issues that we have, some of the skill shortages, but allowing women to participate in the workplace for a longer lifetime, because we now have a longer life expectancy through to 82 in Australia. We have the 100-year life. We're going to be in the workplace a lot longer. And we bring with us the most wonderful of things. And I spoke of that backpack earlier, Janine. So in the backpack of my book, we have coaching practices and strategies. But when we get to midlife, we actually have it filled with experience and wisdom, awareness and insight. We've got in there pattern recognition glasses that we can pull out of our backpack and see so much more because of the experience and hindsight and insight we have. We're faster at responding to things, so we can formulate ideas and be able to be much more flexible in our thinking. In fact, our cognition is at its peak when we're sitting in our 50s,
Oh,
which is
thank
very
God for
different.
that.
I know, isn't that wonderful? Very different to what a lot of advertising material will tell us.
Yes,
We're
that's
actually in
right.
decline. Yet, if the truth be told, and we tap into the longitudinal studies that have been done, there's information that tells us we're actually at a really good place when we're in midlife.
Mm.
So knowing that we have this backpack that we can carry with us, we're actually much more able to look at this stage of life positively and look for opportunity. And rather than thinking it's a worry and a challenge and it causes anxiety, we can reframe how we look at midlife. So the work I'm doing around this is absolutely this. It's around mindset and helping women shape their mindset in support of themselves. It's around communities and relatedness. So I do group coaching with women in the workplace to help them understand and normalize that it's not just them, that there are many others who are also experiencing all sorts of things similar or maybe even different to them, but it's affecting them in the workplace. And then I try and do education and awareness. So men have a big role to play in this too.
Mm.
Um, they will live with people who go through menopause, work with people, observe people, be related to people, all sorts of things, yet they don't know a lot about it. And fair enough, it can feel awkward and embarrassing. So the work I do is to help men be mad about menopause too and equip them with an understanding where men can come together and ask those awkward questions without the embarrassment factor and learn so they can be in support. So really, by us drawing attention to it, it's just going to normalise it. So just as we have with mental health or any other life stress that can affect us in the workplace, perimenopause and menopause will simply be, dealt with in that way in hopefully the short years to come, so that we don't have this as a separate topic.
Yeah. And that's what I love about your thinking and thought leadership in this space and the work that you're doing, because we've almost come from, I'd say, the last 5 years where all the conversation about menopause was, or perimenopause was to do with the symptoms and managing the symptoms. And once again, women having to try and work out what those symptoms were and doing something to make those symptoms better. Interesting, when I spoke to my husband about it, and I said, I wasn't that bad, was I? He goes, oh my God, Janine, you were awful. Like, we don't eat, I love you taught all sorts of things going on, and that's it. There's no one size fits all. But it
100%.
doesn't change. Like pregnancy, I remember being pregnant and going, I'm not sick. I am just pregnant. That's it. I am just pregnant. Um, and what I love about your work is the nuance around it, because you've approached this from the context of business, the commercials, the smarts, the intelligence, the wisdom that we are at risk of losing from industry and from business if we don't work together on this. And you've got so many stats backing this up, which is what I love. And as somebody that has had a long career and intends to be working for much longer, it's like, thank God someone is finally not putting a band-aid over me and actually acknowledging the value that you still have to give. I know,
Huge.
in
Yeah.
Elevate and Inner Circle, my communities, that genius that I have is the ability to put things together differently, that
Yeah.
cognitive joining
Yeah.
dots. And there's no way I'd have had that in my 20s. It's the experience, it's the backpack that you talk
Oh,
about.
it's so
So,
true. Yeah, in our
yeah,
20s, I mean, we're really trying to find ourselves. It's
that's
about
right.
shaping our identity and understanding, how do I go through a personal relationship or a professional relationship, and how do I climb this corporate ladder thing that I'm supposed to do to
Yeah.
find my way. Whereas when we get to midlife, when we're experiencing menopause, we have got so much more. So we're not having to rely on hindsight to say, I should have, could have, or would have done this as I do when I'm younger. It's more about that foresight of, what does my experience tell me? What does my gut tell me? And so I have so much more discernment about my care factor, which I love. What should I care about and what should I not care about? Tolerate, not tolerate.
Yeah.
It's kind of, the excuse the French, but it's the bullshit meter, which we can now, read so much more clearly and call it, which I think is great for everybody, because we can cut through. And we know what our value is. We know how we can be in support. We know how we can actually make a difference. It's just making sure that in the workplace that's not overlooked because of the temporary nature of symptoms. And to be fair, every woman's experience with perimenopause and menopause is unique.
Yeah.
And so we need to be really mindful about how we speak to it. 80% of women do experience symptoms, physical, emotional, cognitive, and they can range from bothersome to life-changing. Then there's 20% who have no symptoms at all. So we don't want to try and also define it in a way that people say, well, if that's your experience, this is mine, then there's something wrong with me, or maybe it's not big enough to talk about. Everyone needs to be able to get to a point where they can communicate what their needs are and feel safe in doing so. And there's a big piece of work in the organisations to help with that safety factor. How do I have a conversation where I don't feel at risk in talking to this?
Do you have any examples that you can share here of where you've gone in to do this work and the shift that it has made, or the changes that has happened? Because I think this is such a new space that you're entering into in terms of the languaging around it, and like you said, men understanding it, etc., etc. I'm sure there are people listening going, yeah, I wish. I'd love you to share some examples of where your work has created a shift for people and in organizations and leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. So one area where I do see a big impact is in the group coaching work I do. So I run a program called Peri Pathways, where the intention of group coaching is to help people have an opportunity to benefit from the group wisdom that comes when you put a small group. I don't do groups larger than 8, where people can come together, talk about their experiences, the challenges they have, but also help each other with formulating solutions. So it's very solution focused. It's very positively minded. At the beginning of my group coaching, and the sessions go for 5 sessions, we start with a survey. And the survey asks a whole series of questions, including tapping into what they're experiencing with different types of symptoms in the workplace, where their confidence sits, whether they were thinking of altering their role, pulling back from opportunities, whether they felt comfortable talking to people about it, both personally, professionally, and so on. And it's quite typical that you do see stats which are saying yes to all of that. Yes, I felt uncomfortable talking about it. No, I don't want to talk to my leader about it. I'm embarrassed. This is awkward. I've lost my identity. Some are even questioning about their validity is in their role and so forth. At the end of the sessions, I do another survey, and there's absolutely a marked shift in what happens in terms of the build of confidence, the ability to find the language to be in conversation, the understanding of the normalcy of what they're experiencing. So they're taking it away from being something that could be perceived as an illness, could be perceived as an embarrassment or an awkwardness, to something that's just very standard and normal. And many more will go out and now talk about it, which is great. So that's a great indicator of the change. But just in themselves, when we go back to the survey data, their level of confidence has typically increased tremendously. And that does so much for them in terms of their ability to flourish. It impacts their well-being. It impacts their level of engagement and motivation, and their role modelling is to other people. And we haven't had a lot of role modelling of women going through perimenopause and menopause. So to actually have women in the organisation who now feel so much more at ease to help themselves and then help others, and also help their male colleagues understand what they're going through, it's benefits across the board.
That's it. That's awesome. Your point there about we haven't had much role modeling, spot on. We haven't. We often talk about how many women who are midlife and above you look to as role models for the work that we do, building successful businesses, building successful careers, and it's a handful. So then overlay this and you're absolutely spot on. So for the woman that might be listening to this right now who potentially could be quietly navigating this stage in life, midlife, maybe even questioning her confidence and her role and where she sits. What's a powerful shift that she could make this week, or what one piece of advice would you give her?
Yeah, it's quite often if I was to try and describe what I'm seeing from a woman coming to talk to me about, often they're feeling invisible. So they're wondering, is it just me, and have I had to pull back because nobody's really engaging with me in the way that's helpful? They're feeling fearful and they're feeling uncertain. And so the shift can be so much more, because the shift can take them from feeling invisible to feeling connected. It can take them from feeling uncertain to having clarity. And it can take them from being worried or disconnected to actually having confidence in what they're doing. So the shift is substantial. It just takes, I guess, a pause and actually believing that you're worth it. And it's enabling yourself to have improved well-being, to feel that you can flourish, to make some positive choices towards how you can solve for this, just as you'd solve any other complex problem in life. And perimenopause and menopause, to my mind, is about solving a complex problem, personal to me, but also affecting my organisation. And if I can overlay that thinking with a solution-focused approach and drawing on positive psychological interventions and growing my suite of tools and practices in my backpack that I can reach on, then it's going to make life a lot easier. And certainly there's, for some people, there'll be medical interventions that will support them. For others, it'll be working with other health practitioners, naturopaths, and so on. But it's finding what's right for you, as opposed to necessarily buying into, oh, I better just do this because that's what I'm hearing everyone else is doing. It's unique to your experience. And so the solution that you will build is going to be fit for purpose for you.
That's great advice. We will make sure in the show notes, I'm going to put the link to your book. You'll be able to, any of you that are interested here and want to find out more, I will put Karen's direct contact details in there. And I think the work that you are doing is game changing and has the potential to change the game in organizations, both for the women that are still adding incredible value, still doing awesome stuff, still leading, still sharing their wisdom, etc., as well as the people around them that are they're either role models for or the the colleagues that they're working with. What I love about this conversation is that you've just totally reframed menopause from something that diminishes women or puts women into that place, the words that you said, well, fearful, unconfident, feeling like they don't belong, all those sorts of weird things, to something that can actually deepen her leadership, the impact that she's having both professionally and personally. And for those women that are listening to this, particularly any of you that are building businesses, advisory practices, consulting, or leading in organizations, I hope from listening to Karen that acknowledgement that your lived experience is not not a liability. That lived experience is such an incredible gift of experience, of knowledge, of wisdom, of nuance, of all of those things, which actually is what we need in this world right now. It's part of your positioning, it's part of your power, and we need people to bring perspective. Because there's a lot of things that we're trying to navigate, solve, solutionize, either at a micro level or a macro level. And we need your voices. We need you to feel like you have a contribution. Karen, as we close up, I'd love you to share what your wish is for your work. You've been doing incredible work, as you said, senior partner in a professional services firm, one of the longest standing partners actually in Australia in that firm. You've retrained as a coach, you've worked in that organization, coaching internally, you've then gone out on your own, you've written a book, you speak on stages, you run workshops, and now this work that you're doing now, why does it all matter for you? What's your wish through this work that you do?
It's such an important point, isn't it? Because if it doesn't matter, then why, right? It matters because of who we are as people. And I think it's about acceptance and tolerance and understanding of if we can be able to support people to be their best or better selves, then what a wonderful ripple effect it is to the world. And when I look at it, sometimes people say, oh, it's self-coaching, it's self-leadership. What I remind them of, it's not self-indulgent. Because if you can be your best or better self, the ripple effect to those around you, your family and friends, to your colleagues and clients and customers and to the bigger community is significant. And what a better world we can have if we can tap into a space, build a greater understanding, be in support of each other, and really be able to lift people to where they need to be so they can thrive through their lives. Well, to my mind, it just makes common sense, and that's a big part of the why. Is it's not as to why, it's really why not, and why shouldn't we, and why wouldn't we?
Yeah. And this is why we connect on this stuff. You know, when we own that commercially and personally, everything shifts. And that's what we need in this world right now. Karen, oh my gosh, always such a pleasure. Thank you for all the wisdom you bring to my world. And thank you for both writing the book and being passionate about changing that landscape from a very sort of smart, commercial, why not, to ensure that organizations and individuals thrive into the future. Really appreciate you. Thank you so
Well,
much.
and I appreciate you, Janine. You're a wonderful mentor and friend and person, and having you as one of my personal board of directors is just an absolute blessing. So I appreciate being with you today.
Oh, it's been awesome. You take care, and I'll put
Thank
details in
you.
the show notes. Please reach out to Karen. It's work that needs to be done. So if you're curious, check out the show notes and contact Karen.